Let me preface this with some background information. I'm a university student in my last year of undergrad, studying to become a teacher. Between my student teaching at a high school, a part-time job at the university's game room, and wedding plans with my fiancé, life is busy, chaotic even. This story began on a Friday afternoon, not long after the final school bell signaled the start of the weekend. My phone buzzed with a message from an unfamiliar number. The area code was local, so I assumed it was a student trying to prank me. Maybe they found my number online or through some convoluted means. The message was simple but chilling. Don't go to work tonight. I stared at the words for a long moment, my pulse quickening. I tried replying, "Who is this?" But every attempt to send a message failed. I texted a friend to confirm my phone wasn't malfunctioning, and it worked fine. Still, I brushed it off. Maybe one of my students overheard me complaining about my late shift and thought this would be funny. By 8:30 p.m., it was time to leave. I changed into my obnoxious sky blue work polo and was tugging it over my head when my phone buzzed again. I froze mid-motion, the fabric still clinging to my arms. The message read, "I see you aren't listening. You need to stay home. Please." A cold, prickling sensation crawled up my spine. My first thought was my fiancé. She had to be behind this. But when I glanced at her, she was buried in her organic chemistry textbook, completely absorbed, her brow furrowed in concentration, oblivious to my unease. I didn't mention the messages. She hated interruptions while studying, and honestly, I felt a little silly. It had to be a joke, right? Just some weird coincidence. I grabbed my bag, kissed her goodbye, and stepped out into the night. As I opened the door, I hesitated, scanning the empty street. The usual hum of the neighborhood felt quieter somehow, almost too quiet. I squinted into the shadows, half expecting to see a figure lurking or a car idling nearby. Nothing. I hurried to my car, my footsteps echoing louder than they should have. Before getting in, I checked the back seat, a habit I'd never bothered with before. Of course, it was empty, but the unease lingered, gnawing at the edges of my mind. As I climbed into the driver's seat, slamming the door shut and locking it behind me, my phone buzzed again. The vibration seemed to echo, louder than it should have been in the stillness of my car. My hands trembled as I reached for the phone, silently praying it was just a routine text from my fiancé, asking me to pick something up on my way home. But deep down, I already knew it wouldn't be. I had left something inside, my nerves. Of course, the messages weren't real. It was just a prank, right? That's what I told myself as I tentatively started the car, gripping the wheel tightly. The drive to work was short, but my thoughts were a swirling storm of unease. I barely remembered parking or clocking in. The building manager, Taylor, gave me a questioning look as I passed her. "You all right?" she asked. I nodded quickly, trying to act normal. What was I supposed to say? "Yeah, everything's great. Just being stalked by cryptic messages warning me not to show up." No! I decided to keep it to myself. The game room was its usual chaotic hub when I arrived. Students played ping pong and pool, while the attached cafe buzzed with chatter. The pre-party crowd filled the air with the smell of greasy burgers and pizza, fueling up before heading to their frat house raegers. But something was different. By 10 p.m., the usual crowd had thinned out too much. Aside from a few cafe workers, Taylor and me, the building was empty. Even the regulars who stayed until closing had vanished. Taylor swung by the game room, her voice laced with sarcasm. "Lively night, huh?" I forced a laugh. She started to leave, but something made me stop her. "Taylor, wait," I called, my voice trembling slightly. She turned, her expression curious. "What's up?" "I've been getting these weird texts tonight," I admitted, "from an unknown number. They kept telling me not to come in, and I don't know. It's probably just some prank, but it's got me on edge." Her brow furrowed, her usual teasing demeanor replaced with concern. "That's strange," she said slowly. But don't worry, James. It's probably just some idiot messing with you. We only have a few hours left, then we can both get some sleep. Her reassurance should have helped, but it didn't, especially when my phone buzzed in my pocket during our conversation. I didn't look immediately. I couldn't. Instead, I tried to distract myself, scrolling through Facebook and pretending everything was fine. But the message lingered in the back of my mind like a dark cloud. Finally, I gave in and glanced at the screen. You shouldn't have told her. They'll come for her now. You need to leave before 1 a.m. A chill ran down my spine. My stomach turned. My fingers flew across the screen as I typed back. Why do I need to leave before 1 a.m.? The response came faster than I expected. They are coming. If you make it, meet me outside the game room tomorrow before it opens. If you make it, the words felt like ice in my veins. If I make it, what the hell did that mean? I tried texting back, asking for clarification, but this time the messages wouldn't send. Panic clawed at my chest. The room felt colder, quieter. I hadn't seen Taylor in a while, so I decided to check on her. I called her cell phone, but it went straight to voicemail. The cafe staff had left early, leaving the building eerily empty. I was alone. The silence pressed down on me, suffocating. My phone buzzed again, and my hands shook as I picked it up. They're closer now. Get out. You have until 1 o'clock. I looked at the time. 12:17 a.m. The minutes were slipping away, and something was closing in. It was 12:45 a.m. The building felt suffocatingly silent, and I still hadn't seen Taylor since our earlier conversation. I tried calling her again, but her phone went straight to voicemail. The same with the building manager's line. The game room was locked up tight, its emptiness amplifying my unease. I was waiting by the door, praying Taylor would show up to lock it behind me, but the clock kept ticking. I couldn't risk staying until 1 a.m. I just couldn't. I didn't have the luxury of searching for her. I had only minutes left. With one last glance at my phone, I muttered under my breath, I'll update if I make it. Whatever that meant. I bolted out of the building, the heavy door echoing behind me like a final punctuation mark. I didn't encounter them, whoever or whatever they were. But Taylor, I never found her. I ran home, my heart pounding harder with every step. The night air felt thicker, like I was being watched, but I refused to look back. My fiancé was still asleep when I locked myself inside the house. I didn't wake her, I couldn't. Not after the warning. They'll come for her if you tell. The words replayed in my mind like a broken record. All I could do was sit in the dark, clutching my phone, waiting for another message. But none came. I didn't sleep, not at first. Images of Taylor kept flashing in my mind. Her lifeless body in the shadows, her face twisted in terror. I didn't know her well, but guilt gnawed at me. Somewhere between those grim thoughts, the sleeping pills finally took hold, dragging me into a restless oblivion. The next morning, I woke up with a heavy weight in my chest, like the events of the night had left an imprint. My fiancée stirred beside me, rubbing her eyes. "Morning, babe. How was work?" she asked, her voice soft and groggy. "Quiet. Cleared out early." I lied, my voice hollow. "That's good. Those are the nights you like, right? Bet you played some RuneScape." She stretched, her smile light and carefree. "Yeah," I mumbled. "A little." She raised an eyebrow. "A little? What did you do for 4 hours? Didn't grade the essays either, did you?" I hesitated, pulling myself out of bed. "No, I just waited." "Waited? For what?" she asked, her tone tinged with concern. I waved it off, avoiding her gaze. "Nothing. Just tired, I guess." But I couldn't shake the message from Pariah. "If you make it, meet me outside the game room before it opens." I had to go back. "Actually, I left something at the game room," I said, pulling my shirt over my head. "I'll run some errands after that." She frowned, watching me carefully. "Don't be gone too long. You're not going to get those essays graded if you keep running around." I nodded, but my mind was already elsewhere. My thoughts raced as I grabbed my keys, stepping out into the cold morning air. The game room, Pariah, Taylor, whatever was waiting for me. I wasn't ready, but I didn't have a choice. The morning air felt heavy, almost like it was warning me to stay away. But I couldn't ignore the Pariah's message. "Meet me before the game room opens." I arrived at 11:40 a.m., just in time. My steps faltered as I approached the building, and my heart sank when I saw 2 police officers standing by the doors, speaking with the manager, Sarah. Sarah wasn't supposed to be here. It was Saturday, but there she was, her face pale and streaked with tears. One officer scribbled in a notebook while the other fired questions. When Sarah spotted me, she called out, "James, officers, this is James." He was working with Taylor last night. My stomach churned. I forced myself to approach, but every step felt like wading through quicksand. The officer asking questions turned toward me, his sharp eyes cutting through me like a blade. "Morning, son. Do you mind if we ask you a few questions?" His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it that made my skin crawl. "No, not at all," I stammered, though my legs felt like they might give out beneath me. "Is everything okay?" The officer with the notebook finally looked up, his expression grim. "James, can you walk us through what happened last night? How did things go?" I swallowed hard and recounted the night as best as I could. I told them how the crowd cleared out early, how the cafe staff left before closing, how quiet everything was after 10 p.m. None of it seemed to interest them until I hesitantly asked, "Is this about Taylor?" The officer with the notebook froze mid-scribble, his pen hovering in the air. The other officer shifted his full attention to me, his towering frame casting a shadow that felt suffocating. Sarah burst into tears, covering her face as sobs racked her body. The officer towering over me rested a heavy hand on my shoulder. "James," he said, his voice low and serious, "when was the last time you saw her?" My throat tightened and I struggled to answer. She came to the game room last night to check on me," I stammered. My voice trembled and my sentences broke apart, fragmented by fear. The officer interrupted gently, his tone softer now. "Why don't we sit down? Get you a glass of water? Take a moment to collect your thoughts." I nodded, unable to do much else. The 4 of us moved to the cafe, the empty space amplifying every sound. The scrape of the chair, the rustle of the officer's notebook, the soft hum of the fridge. As I sat down, I finally managed to recount everything. How Taylor came by to check in, how I hadn't seen her afterward, and how I left as quickly as I could when the Pariah's messages warned me to get out before 1 a.m. The officers listened intently, their expressions unreadable. But every word I spoke seemed to weigh heavier in the air, and Sarah's quiet sobs didn't help. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "What happened?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why are you asking about Taylor?" The officer with the notebook hesitated, then glanced at his partner. The taller officer's jaw tightened before he leaned in close, his next words dripping with foreboding. "James, Taylor didn't clock out last night. Her car's still in the parking lot. We've searched the building, and there's no sign of her." The room spun. My mind reeled, replaying every second of the night, trying to find an answer, a clue, anything. And then, as if on cue, my phone vibrated in my pocket. I didn't want to look, but I did. The message read, "You shouldn't have told them. They're watching now." As the minutes ticked by at the police station, I felt my nerves start to fray, but at least the officers seemed patient with me. They didn't treat me like a suspect, even though I couldn't shake the gnawing suspicion that I might be. They let me sit in a small room, offering me coffee, but I barely touched it. I couldn't stop thinking about Taylor, her empty desk, the messages from Pariah. I hadn't told anyone about that yet, and I wasn't sure if I ever would. I couldn't risk bringing them into this nightmare. After hours of watching the footage, the officers came back to me, their expressions unreadable. They had gone through every minute, every second of my time at the desk. James, the officer who had been writing earlier, said, "We've watched the footage. There's nothing that raises any red flags about your actions. You were at the desk, as you said, all night." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. But the officer paused, and my heart skipped a beat. The security footage from the basement tells a different story. My blood ran cold. I hadn't expected them to check down there. No one ever goes into the basement. It's just storage in old and used spaces. "James, we found something in the footage. A figure. Someone entering the basement. We couldn't get a clear shot of their face, but it's not you." I blinked, confused. "What are you saying?" The officer exchanged a glance with his partner. "We found something else. The building manager's work uniform and bones. There was blood everywhere. We're still waiting on confirmation, but we think it's Taylor." The room felt like it was closing in on me. "What? How? How could she?" "You didn't see her leave, did you?" The officer pressed gently, his eyes fixed on me. I shook my head. "No, I just left. I thought she would lock the door." I was starting to doubt myself, questioning if I had missed something. "You're sure you didn't see anyone else?" I nodded slowly, unsure. The whole night felt like a blur now. "We need to look further into this. We'll need your full cooperation," the officer said. "We've already gone through all the footage of you at the desk. There's nothing suspicious there." But his voice trailed off. I wanted to scream, to tell them everything I knew, but I held back. "I didn't do it," I said quietly. "I didn't have anything to do with this." The officers were silent for a moment. Finally, one of them spoke up. "We're not accusing you, James. We just need to piece everything together." They said they would let me go for now. But I knew it wasn't over. They had seen me at the desk, but they didn't know about the basement. The security cameras didn't cover it, and they certainly didn't know about the messages from Pariah. The tension in the air was suffocating, my heart hammering in my chest as I gripped the knife. I had no idea what was happening, but I knew that I couldn't take any chances. The messages from Pariah echoed in my mind. "They're coming. You can't trust anybody but me." Was Taylor involved in all of this? Could she have been one of them? The knock came again, louder this time. My body tensed as I heard the voice from outside the door. "James, it's me. Open up." I froze. It was Taylor's voice, or at least it sounded like it. My breath caught in my throat. "But she's supposed to be dead," I thought. "The police said they found her. The body." My hand tightened around the handle of the knife, but I didn't move. The knock persisted, followed by a voice that now sounded urgent. "James, it's really me. I need to talk to you. Please, open the door." I knew I shouldn't trust her. I knew something was off, but I couldn't help myself. Something deep inside me, some irrational part of my brain, told me to open the door. Maybe it was her. Maybe it wasn't. I got up slowly, moving away from the office door, trying to listen for any sound that might give me a clue. My hand reached for the doorknob, my nerves on fire. I hesitated for a second longer, and then, just as I was about to open the door, the feed on my monitor flickered again. I glanced back at the screen. There was something moving near the camera. Something or someone in the shadows just beyond the lens. No. I stepped back, my heart racing. "Don't be stupid," I told myself. "That's not her." I turned back to the door. The knocking had stopped. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I grabbed it, heart pounding, and checked the message. It was from Pariah. "I told you they'd come for you. Get out. Now." I couldn't breathe. The walls felt like they were closing in. The knock at the door started again, but this time it was more frantic. "James, please. I'm not who you think I am." I felt my hand tremble as I stared at the door, caught between the messages, the warning, and the relentless sound of someone or something on the other side. Was it really her? Or was it something else? Something worse? What was I supposed to do now?